My name is Praise. I am one of the on-site managers here at the Roosevelt Safe Spot. I grew up in a family that was mostly poor for much of my childhood. I was homeless 3 times by the time I was 4 that I know of. But my parents went through periods of becoming small business owners. I was a very curious child, spent a lot of time outdoors. I would say that I was partially raised by nature because of it. So I did really well in school, went to college. I only stayed for 1 year because I realized that, you know, there was a huge gap between people that I was going to school with and myself and other people I knew going to school. There was students from the San Francisco Bay Area, a large contingent from Southern California, and it was just, you know, a really kind of I was raised rural mostly, and there was too big of a difference between us. And I scored really high on the SAT. I was very interested in physics, math, astronomy, still am. And I've managed to use what I've learned, you know, as a child and going to college, and a lot of things I've learned since then. I came to Eugene in 1997. I found a wooded area in a park, a natural wooded area. I found a clearing in the middle of a huge field of blackberries. The parks people found me because I found a radio the night before. I was playing it the morning they came through. I went before a judge. People told me it's best to be short and sweet. They don't like to hear people go on and on about why they're breaking the law, regardless of what the law is. So I kept it really short and sweet. They asked me if I had anything to say in my defense, and I said, I sleep. And my chest was going, This was 1997, you know, and so then that led to a conversation when the situation in the community had changed and Occupy Eugene had happened, and I had a conversation with a woman who actually came here a few times to donate some clothing. She works for Universal Healthcare. And she said she was working with this new committee trying to focus on homelessness and how to get the city government agencies to participate more directly. And I told her about my story about going before that judge, because myself and all the other people camping in that wooded area, we were all spread out. We didn't have a little, you know, we weren't dumb. You don't want to camp together. Right. You want to try and hide your camp. At that time, that was the thing to do. And so I said, I think what you need to organize is around a principle that all people have in common, an idea, which is that we all are biologically required to sleep, usually at least once a day. All human beings are connected, and for homeless people to feel a part of a community, we had to fight for you know, the right to build community, and that's what we have here. This is city land. The city's not paying for this project, but they are providing the land There used to be a house right here at this very spot, and unfortunately, because of its location, it eventually involved a lot of drugs, and it caught on fire and burned the fence right there. And so the city had to foreclose and take the land. They were trying to use it. It was covered with blackberries for a long time. So, you know, I've been an activist since about really starting in the 80s. But I got involved in, you know, I went to a protest that had about 8,000 people. I was one of over 1,000 people arrested in Humboldt County, California, in the heart of the redwoods. Redwood country, and you know, ever since then, I've believed that no matter what circumstances you're in, you can always not only make your own situation better, you can change. You can make little changes that build and build and build as more and more people see the light. And eventually, you know, I would like to see a world where nobody is required to spend their whole life or a huge chunk of their life living someplace where it's hard to sleep. In 2004, I was still camping out. Unfortunately, I believe the winter before I got that job, I got sick. I didn't have any place to go, and I just stayed in my lean-to. All I had was a tarp over a platform that I built, and it damaged my lungs. So I have a lung specialist because of it. I have to actually reschedule with them. I see my lung specialist about once a year, so I'm 50 now. But I was very hopeful at the time, you know, getting a job. It looked like I was going to be, you know, I was saving money. Then a friend of mine in January 2005, after almost 10 years of, you know, living on the edge or living outdoors, couch surfing and so forth, and I spent 3 winters, you know, just living right outdoors here in this area, and 2 winters down in Humboldt County. And they get some pretty heavy storms there on the coast. So my friend invited me to come live with her and, you know, pay her some rent money, and kept my job. I got kicked out of where I was camping, and so that's when I told her that I would come live with her, and stayed with her for a few months. Then I came to Eugene, and I've been living here ever since. The last place I lived, I lost my job because I had to choose between taking care of an 83-year-old woman that I was living with or keeping my job. And I chose to take care of the 83-year-old. I did what I think was the right thing. And the job wasn't too good for me anyway, because I was doing traffic control, and, you know, lots of trucks and city buses were going right by me with diesel exhaust. It just wasn't good for my lungs. And it was a nice neighborhood, but I only got to stay there for 2 years. I didn't pay rent. I helped the family get the house fixed up so they could, you know, move some renters in there. Then I camped up way up in the hills outside of Eugene with mountain lions and bears, and people blowing off bombs right above my tent. Yeah, they didn't want me up there, but I was fighting for my life. I didn't care what they did. You know, I was going to stay there. And I actually testified against a huge development that they wanted to put in. They wanted to put the trail above my camp. They wanted to take the trail and turn it into their main access road. And the state official denied every single request for, you know, change of land use code and so forth, you know. And I was only there 12 weeks at that point when I testified, and I just told them everything I saw, which was, you know, mountain lions. I heard the mountain lions. I saw a huge deer. I heard a bear. I saw all kinds of birds, hummingbirds. That's the thing about homeless people and Native Americans also. I have Native heritage.
I do too.
You know, when we're camping out in a single place and we're forced to live close to the land, you know, if you have the wherewithal to figure out how you can be hidden enough to camp someplace like that and fight for your right to essentially connect with the land, at least to sleep, you know, and try and not have to move around too much. You know, you end up connecting with the land if you don't move around too much. A lot of people become homeless. After a while, you know, there's this line. There's organizations now. There's one right here in Eugene that's people are beginning to understand this, that there's a line that people reach in a fairly short period of time. You feel like everybody you know, the whole society is abandoning you. Yeah. And you get really discouraged. And so if you can get to this point where you're in it for the long haul because you haven't taken the steps, you know, like right away that you need to take in order to prevent long-term homelessness. So there's an organization working with young people. They're finding right here in Eugene, Oregon, people as young as 9 years old are just walking out of their homes and becoming homeless kids. And so they're trying to intervene within 15 days. So, but those of us who become, particularly when we're older, young people are very resilient, but they don't have the support and the resources to really make homelessness work as a way to survive, you know. Yeah. And so some of us who are older, I can't really speak for young people because I wasn't homeless when I was a teenager. It wasn't until I was 19, I think. So I can't speak too much. But as an older person becoming homeless, you become pretty resilient, you learn some skills, and one of those is learning how to hide. And that forces you to connect with the land.